Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric here with Iraq Veteran 8888. Today I've got a special video for you. This is somewhat outside of the norm that we're used to making, but we've got a lot of new gun owners, and I'm trying to kind of continue down the path of explaining things to newbies. We've got a lot of new gun owners in the fold, and we want to make sure that everybody is as safe as possible and that they are also using the proper tools for the job that they need to protect their families, their communities, each other, what have you. Shotguns are a popular firearm, and they actually are very much a chameleon of a gun in terms of what they can do. They can do everything from shooting birds out of the sky to shooting through barriers and anything in between. They can even be used for some big game hunting. I mean, they are super useful and can carry a wide variety of different payloads and can fill a wide variety of different purposes. But it's also important, if you're new to firearms, to understand that shotgun shells do represent a little bit of a knowledge base that you need to understand what you're getting into, and that not every shotgun shell is created equal, okay? Because there are so many different types of payloads in a shotgun, it's important to choose the proper tool for the job. You know, a lot of people are buying shotguns as their first firearm, and of course shotguns are awesome, and they are available in a lot of different action types, everything from single shot, pump, semi-automatic, and anything in between. So there's lots, you know, double barrels obviously. Chiappa has their triple threat, which is a 3-barreled shotgun. So there's a lot of variety out there. Each action type is going to sort of prefer certain things that it can and cannot do, okay? For instance, Benelli has the M3 model, which can convert between a pump and a semi and allow you to run just about any type of ammunition you may come across. Some ammunition will not reliably cycle a semi-automatic. Other types of ammunition, it doesn't matter, it'll run anything. So there are different power levels of 12 gauge ammo as well as different payloads. And what I want today's video to primarily be about is the different types of payloads, like what comes out of a shotgun, and to explain gauge and shot size. That's today's primary focus. We have another video on color codes and identifying shotgun shells based on their color code. Not all shotgun gauges are the same. Now, when we say gauge, you know, you say 12 gauge. Well, where does 12 gauge come from? That sounds kind of random, right? Well, 12 gauge comes from the amount of lead round balls it takes to equal a pound for the bore size. I know that's confusing, but if you take the bore diameter of a 12 gauge shotgun and you take that bore diameter and you cast round balls, it takes 12 round balls to equal a pound of lead. That's simply how they do it. That's why when you have a 10 gauge, it only takes 10 round balls to equal a pound of lead in a 10 gauge. That's why a 28 gauge, you would think, logic would tell you, well, 28 gauge, that sounds big. Well, I don't want that little wimpy 12 gauge. I want a 28 gauge because that's more gauges. It takes 28 round balls to equal a pound of lead in a 28 gauge. So the higher the number, the smaller the diameter of the bore. The smaller the number, the higher the diameter. So get that out of your mind, all right? 12 gauge is kind of a medium contender, okay? 10 gauge is a big boy. That's not going to be quite so common in terms of your home defense needs, although there are 10 gauges out there. 12 gauge is sort of the standard for self-defense. So just know that if you're shopping for a shotgun, or if you've already purchased a shotgun, you should know that 12 gauge is going to be the most common shotgun shell you're going to encounter, with the widest variety of different payloads and options available, especially in defensive loads. All right, so let's start with birdshot. Now, there are different sizes of birdshot, but for the purposes of today's video, we're going to look at 7.5. All right, 7.5 is kind of a nice medium size of shot, right? But you've got essentially birdshot. Now, birdshot, you've got a ton of little pellets here inside of this shot cup. All right, I'm going to pour these out in my hand. Look at this. Look at all that shot. That's a lot of shot. Okay, so what you gain with having birdshot is you have an increased amount of chances of shooting a bird out of the air, right? Birds are moving when you shoot at them. You have to lead them. And yeah, not every single pellet is going to hit the bird that you're aiming at, but the idea here is that you have a spread, okay, of shot. And that shot spread, as long as it encompasses the area that that bird is flying within, and as long as the carrying energy, you're close enough and have a good enough load, the idea is that, yes, it only takes a small amount of these pellets to take down a bird. Okay, so you're dispersing that energy. Think about this. It's real simple. You're dispersing the energy amongst all these pellets. Okay, now if you're at really close range, let's say that I shot something at point blank range. Well, that shot cup with that birdshot in it is going to act more like a slug at really close range because that shot has not had a chance to disperse out of the cup and actually take flight, right? So birdshot generally is not considered a defensive load because it loses so much energy at even a modest range. Now, granted, when we hear people say, well, they got peppered with birdshot, you have so much shot that the mass of this little piece of shot is so little that it takes a heck of a lot of force in order to get that to harm you at range, right? That's why you'll see trap and skeet ranges that are in a circle. And you might be shooting at something in the air and there might be somebody 400 yards from you directly in your path that you're literally shooting right where they are. But because the carrying energy of these small little bitty projectiles is so minimal, it just doesn't have the carrying energy to travel that far. Once it comes out of the shotgun and goes up in the air, it's gonna fall out of the sky pretty quick because you just don't have the mass with these little bitty pellets that are needed to cause any type of long range injury or taking down game. All right, so that's why shotguns get a reputation for being a close range only type of weapon, because those round pellets lose so much energy as they travel through the air, especially in birdshot. And that's why most people don't consider birdshot to be a viable home defense or self-protection type of thing. Now, if it's all you've got, sure, getting peppered with birdshot is not pleasant, right? It's still going to be very, very dangerous, and it's still not intended to be treated like a toy. It still can hurt you very much, especially at very close range when this wad does not have a chance to expel the buckshot into any sort of a pattern. At real close range, this thing is going to act almost like a slug or a solid because of that cup and shot being sort of homogeneous and together, and it hasn't really had a chance to move apart, if that makes sense, okay? So you get into birdshot, then we step up into what we call buckshot, okay? Now with buckshot, not all buckshot is created equal, okay? Buckshot is a much larger pellet, all right? Right here I've got a couple of Double-Aught Buckshot. Right here you can see it's a much larger pellet, okay? So each pellet, you can't fit as many pellets into the cup, but they have more mass, which means they penetrate more and they carry more energy for a longer distance than these tiny little pellets do. That's what makes Double-Aught Buckshot such a great personal defense load, because yeah, it still spreads out a bit like the small shot does, but you get really good patterns, and even out to like 25, 35 yards, maybe even with some loads like the Federal Flight Control, you can get really good patterns even out to like 50 yards, even out of buckshot, which is great. All right, so that greatly increases your chance of causing a lethal wound to an assailant, or if you're deer hunting, that's why they call it buckshot, because obviously it's more for like big game like deer. All right, not all shot sizes in buckshot are the same either. We start out with number 4 buckshot. Number 4 buckshot is kind of, in a way, it's sort of in between birdshot and Double-Aught. You can fit 41 pellets of number 4 buckshot in a 3-inch shell, so that's quite a bit of payload there. You're still getting some dispersal of the pellets. The pellets are roughly about the size of a .25 caliber projectile, so they're roughly about 25 cal. So it's certainly a lot of payload. And also, number 4 buckshot doesn't penetrate quite as much through an abodement. So we've done wall testing where we have tested number 4 buckshot, and it performs quite well. It still offers a good amount of penetration. You get a bit more mass on each of the projectiles, okay, and some good carrying energy, but not so much carrying energy that you're shooting through 5 walls in your house. So if you live in an apartment building or you're in close proximity to your neighbors, this is a much better buckshot choice if you're worried about shooting through all the walls in the house. Okay, we step up to Double-Aught Buckshot. okay? Comes in a lot of different payloads. The Double-Aught is going to be your most common buckshot round, okay? Now, this isn't all of them because it does kind of go up the chain. You know, you have a number 4 buckshot, 3, 2, 0, and of course it goes into various types of buckshot types, okay? But Double-Aught is going to be your most common buckshot. This is what most of your defensive loads are going to be loaded with, is Double-Aught. Here we have a Winchester military round, which is a 9 pellet, 2 3/4 inch buckshot load. This is a very, very common type of buckshot that you're going to see. The only way you can increase this payload is by increasing the length of the shell. So as you step into a 3-inch, that allows you to step up to a 12 pellet. As you step up to a 3.5 inch buckshot round, you're able to get 18 pellets of Double-Aught buckshot in a 3.5. But the issue is that in a 3.5 inch chamber, that's more of a specialized shotgun. Not every gun is chambered for a 3.5 inch shell. Most shotguns are chambered for 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. 3.5 being more of an outlier. So make sure whatever ammo that you're getting for your gun, that whatever's listed on the gun itself, it's going to show you the chamber length, and do not exceed that chamber length. You can develop unsafe pressures, and you can put premature wear on the gun, and in some cases you can actually have some issues. All right, so you definitely do not want to shoot a longer shell than what the gun is designed to take. All right, so you have Double-Aught. Then we step up into Triple-Aught. This is, out of all the buckshot families, this is going to get into the larger buckshot for sure. In a 3-inch, all right, so just to put this into perspective, in a 3-inch shell, we can only fit 10 pellets of Triple-Aught buckshot. We can see that Triple-Aught buckshot is the largest of the buckshot sizes, giving us a .36 inch or 36 caliber projectile. Okay, so each pellet is 36 caliber in a Triple-Aught, so this represents the largest buckshot. You can only fit 10 pellets of Triple-Aught in a 3-inch shell. So you put that into perspective, in a 2 3/4, you're not talking a huge payload in terms of the amount of round balls that are in this buckshot round. But on that token, though, you get much better carrying energy. So a Triple-Aught buckshot round, although not quite as common, you do get really good carrying energy and exceptional penetration, especially in a magnum load that has a good powder charge behind it. All right, so when we step up from Birdshot to number 4 buck, we get into Double-Aught, Triple-Aught. Now let's get into solids. All right, so not all solids are created equal, but solids represent the most direct transfer of energy and the heaviest payload that you can possibly get down to. And they represent the most energy in a shotgun because the projectile is one projectile. So it's literally a solid, okay? So with the slug being a solid, you get more energy downrange. The energy carries for longer. And at traditional shotgun ranges, slugs provide absolutely visceral penetration and energy on target. And not all slugs are created equal, but generally speaking, the heavier the slug and the faster you can get a heavy slug moving, the more the recoil it's going to have more recoil force, but it's going to have a lot more penetration capabilities and a lot more carrying energy for longer range. Not all shotguns are created equal in terms of how they will handle slugs, okay? Some shotguns have rifled barrels that are designed to stabilize slugs much better, okay? There are certain shotgun rounds that are like Sabo shotgun rounds that are specifically made for rifled barrels, and that you won't have very good accuracy out of a smoothbore. There are other types of slug rounds that are intended to work equally well in smoothbore and rifled barrels. For the purposes of this video, you're probably dealing with a smoothbore shotgun, and that's fine. Smoothbore is not a bad thing. With a smoothbore shotgun, you have a Forster-style slug. With your Forster-style slugs, basically what they have is a driving band, and they have these flutes that are sort of cast into the projectile, and as those gases expand, they interact with those flutes and they cause a little bit of a spin, a little bit of a lofty spin. Not a super crazy spin like you would get out of a rifled barrel, but the Forster-style slugs enhance the accuracy of a smoothbore by allowing those gases to put a little bit of a slight spin on the projectile. Okay, This one here is a Benelli Home Defense 1 ounce slug that is also reduced recoil. Recoil is a big thing. As you increase the payload and as you increase the powder charge, it is going to increase the recoil of the round. There's no such thing as a free lunch in physics. So if I make this projectile heavier and I put the maximum powder charge in it, it's going to have a nice little amount of recoil in there. Okay. If I take a heavy projectile and I lower the powder charge, it may not be as powerful as like a full bore slug, but it's still going to ruin somebody's day. All right, we're going to step up here. This is a duplex broadhead hexalit. This is the number 28 expanding steel slug. I didn't cut one of these open because these are super expensive slugs, but this is an expanding broadhead slug that's designed for hunting. You notice it has a high brass shell. Most of your higher pressure shotgun shells are going to have a high brass hull to help it obturate properly and to contain the pressure. And then most of your lower pressure shells, you can see that the brass on our bird load is considerably lower, what we call low brass versus high brass. Generally speaking, it's not always the case, but generally speaking, the higher the brass, the higher the pressure that it's designed to contain, and the more they want to make sure that the rear of that cartridge, where most of the pressure is exerted, is nice and strong, right? You want to have that brass a little higher to contain a higher pressure of the cartridge. So generally, your higher pressure cartridges are going to have a higher brass, what we call high brass, okay? This hexalit is a really cool projectile. It's great for deer hunting, hunting big game, but also for personal defense. You're talking about a slug that will not take any prisoners, let's put it that way. And that's why I like them. I use them for home defense. Okay, so the broadhead hexalit is a really cool example of an expanding steel slug. Very, very interesting technology that Duplex puts into their projectiles. All right, here we have something else from Benelli. I'm a big fan of Duplex and Benelli slugs. These absolutely are my favorite slugs I use all the time. I love the Black Magic as well. That's a great slug. This is their maximum barrier penetrator. Okay, this slug right here it's a heavy. It weighs 1 3/8 ounce. So this is getting on the top end of a payload for a 12 gauge. That is one heavy slug, and it is moving at a good little tick as well. And this is a super hardened alloy slug. They actually use special alloys, which I would imagine it's probably linotype or some type of linotype based alloy that makes it really, really, really hard, but not brittle, just hard enough to be able to penetrate light barriers. So this is a slug, if you think you're going to be in a position where you have to shoot through a car door or a car windshield, these things will absolutely penetrate any barrier you need to get through if that's what you're worried about. But keep in mind that this slug will also penetrate the ever-loving crap out of your house. This thing will go through multiple walls before it stops. So don't shoot it at anything you don't intend to destroy, because that's what these slugs do, is destroy things. Okay, so two very different things, right? When we've gone over these slugs and these buckshot rounds, we went from a load that is designed to kill a bird all the way to a load that can kill a bear in one gun. Birds, bears. Bad guys, birds, bears. Okay? All right, we're going to step up. Now you have 2 3/4, you have 3 inch, we have 3.5 inch. All right, so this represents a power level in a buckshot round that is approaching 10 gauge type payloads and speeds. Okay? Now, obviously, a Magnum 10 gauge load can really get some really cool power going down range, but 10 gauges aren't quite as popular for defensive purposes as a 12 gauge. Now, if you do have a Benelli Super Black Eagle or something like that with a 3.5 inch Magnum chamber, or a pump shotgun like a Remington 870 Wingmaster or something that might have a 3.5 inch chamber, you can chamber these shells and fire them safely in that shotgun. One thing of note is that as the shell gets longer, you also decrease your capacity. The longer the shell, the fewer of them you can fit in the magazine. The smaller the shell, generally, the more of them you can fit in the magazine. So as you get more length, yes, you get more payload per shot, but you also decrease your capacity over the a given magazine length. Okay. And I wanted to show the 10 gauge. This is a 10 gauge slug. That's a lot of firepower going down range there. But just to show you, I mean, that it definitely gets into some very different territory there. Okay, that's a 10 gauge slug, and this is a 2 3/4 inch buckshot load, Winchester military load. We'll quickly, before I let you go, we're going to talk about chokes a little bit. There's some things that you need to consider. If you're a new shotgun owner, chances are the shotgun that you've purchased could have a screw-in choke. And the chokes that are in your gun are going to determine what you really want to shoot through the gun and what you don't, okay? Some chokes really constrict the shot column as is going out the end of the barrel, and there are certain chokes that you do not want to shoot slugs or even some buckshot through, okay? Chokes, in a nutshell, are designed to constrict the shot column as it passes out of the end of the gun and maintain a nice tight pattern as the shot goes down range. So chokes generally are used to keep really tight patterns when you're shooting at birds and things in the air. You want to add that extra 10 yards onto your shot spread. It brings that shot spread in tighter and tighter. If you want the gun to throw a bigger spread, then you stick with a cylinder bore. If you want a tighter spread, then you obviously add tighter chokes to get a better spread on your birdshot. I personally would treat a choke as birdshot only. You know, buckshot, you can get away with improved cylinder, okay? But I wouldn't go any tighter than improved cylinder on buckshot. And honestly, you can shoot slugs out of improved cylinder, no problem. But I wouldn't shoot slugs through anything tighter than an improved cylinder. So you have cylinder bore, which means cylinder bore, okay? The bore is no constriction on the barrel. It is the same diameter from the end of the muzzle all the way to the beginning of the chamber. It's cylinder bore, what they call that. Cylinder bore is no constriction. And you can shoot anything you want out of a cylinder bore. Anything that says 12 on it, put it in there and run it, you're good. No big deal, okay? Most defensive shotguns that don't have any form of screw-in choke are generally going to be cylinder bore, which means run it if you got it, you're good. But that's important to know because some guns have fixed choke made into the gun. So if you look at your shotgun and it says IC on the barrel, improved cylinder, that means it's not a cylinder bore. It means it is a fixed, improved cylinder barrel. That is not a problem. You can still shoot buckshot through an improved cylinder. In fact, buckshot groups really nice out of improved cylinder. No problem. Slugs, depends on the wad and the payload. I would approach with caution using any form of a choke with slugs. You can shoot slugs out of improved cylinder, but I generally always try to stay away from, I try to just stick to cylinder bore if you're talking slugs. And we'll go over, so these are chokes, that's what they look like. So these screw in and you have a choke wrench for getting the chokes in and out. These are Benelli Chokes. This one is a modified. Modified is going to be a little bit tighter than improved cylinder. I believe that's the next one up from improved cylinder. So you got cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, improved modified. You have full, and then you have extra full. And then there's any number of like skeet chokes and super tight chokes that are designed for really specific purposes. Guys, please don't put a modified or improved modified or skeet choke or a full choke on a shotgun and try to shoot a slug through it. Don't shoot a buckshot through it. Okay, so if you have screw-in chokes, you can get an improved cylinder screw-in choke that's designed to protect the threads of your shotgun. Because you can see here, this is a Winchester SX3 Invector choke. You see that the threads are actually down inside of the barrel. So you would not simply want to just remove the choke and then just shoot the gun without a choke in it, because then you're going to get that wadding and fouling into the threads, and you might not be able to get all that out very easily, right? So if you had a Winchester SX3, you would buy the cylinder bore choke that will also double as a thread protector for your threads on the inside of your barrel, so that you don't get a bunch of fallout and crap in there and gunk those threads up. Okay, so don't assume that just because you remove the choke, yeah, it's a quick fix, maybe, but you want to make sure that you get, if you have screw-in chokes on your shotgun and you're not comfortable with removing them, or if you don't have the tool, go to your gunsmith and tell them to install a cylinder bore choke on your gun, and it'll protect those threads, and you can shoot whatever you want out of it, and it won't be a big deal. Okay. Or at worst, maybe an improved cylinder, but I would stick to cylinder. That's just my recommendation. And there's going to be any number of people that are going to jump in on this conversation and say that you can shoot this and that through that. Every single situation is different, but for the new gun owner, if you want to err on the side of caution, buy a shotgun with improved cylinder choke that's fixed with no screw-in choke, and don't worry about it. And honestly, that's going to be like 90% of your defensive shotguns anyway, okay? I just wanted to mention it because there's a lot of new gun owners out there that may not know that chokes are a thing. So please don't take grandpa's old skeet gun with a skeet choke in it and try to shoot a slug through it, okay? Not going to end well. Trust me, you don't want to do that, okay? It may not blow up or burst the barrel on the first shot, but it might, okay? And you just don't want to risk that. And with that tighter choke, you're also going to get a degradation of slug accuracy with the really tight chokes as well. So it's not good. It builds excessive pressure. It's squeezing that projectile down. It's developing unsafe pressures. Don't do it. Stick with cylinder bore, maybe improved cylinder. That's it. Don't exceed improved cylinder for anything. If you're trying to, especially if you're trying to shoot solids. Okay. I hope this video helps some of you. If you're new to the shotgun world, please take a moment to read the manual on your gun. Make sure you know what you're dealing with. Take the time to look at the markings on your shotgun. You need to look at the chamber length. You need to look at the type of choke, if any, is built into the barrel. And you need to make sure that you're making informed decisions about what you're putting through your shotgun. And what this video was also intended to do is obviously explain that not all shotgun shells are made equal. They all serve a very different purpose. Okay, and they can all do a wide variety of different things. Shotguns are a very versatile tool that can really serve a ton of different purposes. And honestly, I feel like a 12 gauge shotgun is one of the most versatile guns just about you can get, period. Okay. There's a lot more information out there. This is the basics. So hopefully you guys came away with a little bit of knowledge. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. And I would definitely like to take a moment to thank all the folks who purchased man cans over on the website, as well as t-shirts and other merch over on ballisticinc.com. Also, if you are a Patreon supporter, if you see value in what we do and you wish to support us, thank you so much for supporting our channel and seeing value in what we provide. And thank you for being a part of what we do. We hope that you'll share this video with some of your shotgun toting buddies, especially if they are new to shotguns. The last thing we want is for anyone to get hurt or do anything unsafe. We want for people to be safe, protect their families, do what they need to do, and do it in a way that gives them the best tools for the job that they need. So it's important to know what you're dealing with so you can make the best decision for you. So thank you so much for watching. Many more videos on the way. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.